Once again, we gather for another installment on the nature of human existence, and once again, we'll begin with a photograph of this cartouche. Last time I gave you a riddle about what the bottom part of the cartouche represents, and we'll get to that in a moment. The cartouche features a sun disk, an erect penis, and a snake. If you look at this fresco, the meaning is exactly the same. The man, depicted as a spiritual being with a penis, represents the sun, which is guarded by a serpent. There are two spiritual beings, but the serpent rules the world. It is the cartouche of the ruler of the world. We can also see the sacred scarab with a disc under its feet. This is a symbol of Mother Earth, a woman with the moon under her feet, who is known in Egyptian culture as Isis. This symbol appears very often and is also associated with the cross of life. It is the ancient Egyptian conception of Adam and Eve. People are always talking about the devil and hell, but the devil is actually this serpent, which has many names in different cultures. So the question arises, what is hell? Is this our world? And why are our bodies sinful? It is very likely that in ancient times, humans did not exist in a physical form, but in a quantum form, like light. In the images from Soho, we saw this feathered serpent holding the sun's disk in its mouth, and we also saw that the sun is not actually a ball of fire, but rather a sort of fiery ring with a dark center. The sun, the snake, winged discs, and crosses, all of these have accompanied humanity for thousands of years in the form of symbols. The age of artificial intelligence is no exception, nor are remote indigenous tribes. Only the form differs. Now let's return to the bottom of the cartouche. As you can see, the cartouche consists of an oval with another straight section attached to the bottom, as if the two parts were tied together with a string to form a single unit. In fact, it is the upper part of the cross of life, which is essentially another representation of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail, symbolizing the womb, is also depicted in hieroglyphic script in the shape of a bowl. Let's take a look at it. On the right is the Egyptian Ankh. The upper part was used for the cartouche. Of course, the shape is slightly different, and this is likely due to the number of symbols used inside. However, the lower part of the cross of life was not included, and we can assume that it is part of a riddle, or that this part simply does not appear in the cartouche because it would be too large and detract from the size of the symbols inside. Inside the cross of life, we see a winged scarab in the center, a symbol of Isis, the goddess of fertility, or the goddess and mother of the earth. Above her head is a sun disk, a biblical woman with the sun above her head. On either side, we see two sacred cobras. We'll explain why cobras specifically later in connection with the human hologram. However, it appears that these snakes also have a sun disk above their heads. The scarab sits on a bowl, which may symbolize the Holy Grail, that is, the womb of the mother. Beneath the bowl, we see something that could be the tree of life. This means that ever since the creation of humankind and the beginning of sexual reproduction, people have been passing on to their descendants not only their DNA, but also the energy that drives all living things. That is the flash of energy, the tiny light that appears when an egg is fertilized. At the bottom of the cross, we see other symbols: scarabs, cartouches, a bowl, and birds representing human souls. Human existence is not a coincidence, but, let's say, a higher purpose. The purpose of the universe, the purpose of God. Take a look at this cross of life. In the center, we see an erect penis with a little goat. We'll take another look at this goat with the strange hook. It is often depicted alongside a chalice resembling the Holy Grail and is part of the male reproductive system. The phallus, the goat, the bowl, the cross of life, the sun, the snake, the scarab as a symbol of a woman with the sun above her head. All of these are inseparable symbols in hieroglyphic writing. And let's take a look at another circle of life. This time, it's in color. Once again, we see the winged scarab with the sun above its head, a symbol of the biblical woman with the sun above her head. Sacred cobras flank her on both sides, and it seems they too have the sun above their heads. But look where these cobras are emerging from. It's the upper part of the cross of life, a symbol of the mother's womb, and also what's known as a cartouche. The Holy Grail, also known as the womb of the mother, is depicted here in the shape of a bowl directly beneath the scarab. At the bottom, the symbol no longer resembles the tree of life, but rather a lotus flower. And as we have shown, the shape of the lotus corresponds to the form of a human fetus at 14 days old. Is that too complicated? It might be even more complicated, but all the more interesting for it. The mother's womb is a magical place where the forces of the sun, the serpent, and the earth all work together. You are not the body, but the light somewhere in the darkness within your body. And this is precisely what the Egyptian symbols tell us. Symbols that mainstream science has interpreted as representing the dynasties of the pharaohs and their gods. In reality, almost all the beings depicted in the frescoes can be considered gods, as beings of light. Many of these symbols appear in both ancient and modern cultures. Let's take a look at some of them. Inanna, also known as Ishtar, was the goddess of love, war, and fertility in Mesopotamia. Look at what she's holding in her hands. It is essentially the shape of an Egyptian cartouche, though the cartouche is oval in order to provide enough space for the symbols. The goddess has wings, and her wings also define her spiritual essence, which takes many forms. Inanna, Ishtar, stands on two lions. She herself comes from the house of Leo, and the lion, as we already know, is also a spiritual representation of our sun. The lion is one of the biblical beasts. Let's look at this from a slightly different angle. You may recall the number 666, where I suggested that John added the last two digits together in his prophecy. That means the actual number is 66.33, 66 degrees, and 33 minutes. This is the angle formed by the Earth's axis and the plane of the ecliptic, and currently its value is 66 degrees and 55 minutes, so we are very close to the number of the beast. It is also interesting that the Earth's axis points directly toward the constellation of Serpens. I know you see a dragon, but the Bible specifically mentions a dragon, an ancient serpent. And the number 33 is also the highest degree of the Masonic Lodge. And here we have the number 33, along with two eagles, arranged in a pyramid, a symbol of the earth. How symbolic! If we view the goddess as Mother Earth, these values make sense. A woman of the lion's lineage and the number of the beast, the number of the lion, that is, the point at which our Earth finds itself caught up in a whirlwind of biblical events. It all fits together. But let's go back to Ishtar, Inanna, Isis. Let's go back to the biblical Eve. The goddess stands on lions, but we can also see two owls. These owls are identical to the lions. They are simply another manifestation of the spirit. The goddess herself has the legs of a bird of prey, likely an owl. But in later times, the symbol of the eagle came into use and has remained so to this day. This coin comes from ancient Mycenae, and once again we see Ishtar, though in this case she goes by a different name. Nevertheless, she holds two snakes in her hands and is accompanied by a bull. The bull is frequently depicted and worshipped in many cultures, and I assume it symbolizes life energy. It may also represent one of the four forms of a biblical angelic being. In the background, you can see the Mycenaean gate, which is once again dominated by two lions. Here we are looking at a Mesopotamian tablet. At the bottom, we see the spirit of Lamash, and the tablet is held by the winged spirit Pazuzu. I really don't know why they are referred to as demons. Is it ignorance, or is there a purpose behind it? This upper section depicts 7 angelic beings. They take the form of beasts, biblical beasts, and most likely represent the 7 churches of the world. Above their heads, in the center on the right, are 7 lights like the lights of the menorah, 7 stars, 7 angels. The moon is a symbol of Eve, the winged sun as Adam, and a symbol for Earth with a marked shift of 22.5 degrees for the Earth's axis. We've already shown this in one of our earlier videos, but we'll recap everything at the end of this series. At the bottom, we see the spirit of Lamashta. Lamashta and Pazuzu take the form of lions. Lamashta, however, is a female spirit, and note that she is holding 2 snakes in her hands. This goddess is seated on something that resembles a horse or a unicorn, but it is more likely that it is a symbol of the bull as a source of life energy. At the very bottom, we see fish, which are also a symbol of the soul in Christianity, the human soul. To this day, the symbol of the fish, or more precisely the fish's mouth, can be seen in the form of a bishop's mitre. It also appears on many other Mesopotamian tablets. Eating fish during the Christmas holidays in Europe is just as symbolic as receiving Holy Communion. Both are symbols of the spirit, or the soul, if you will. We'll return to Egypt, so just briefly. A woman with the sun above her head. The cross is an integral part of her life. This is the so-called Holy Grail in its Egyptian form. This goddess, presumably Isis, holds a sacred cobra in each hand. You might be wondering, what are we doing in Tiwanaku? Yes, we're in Tiwanaku, Bolivia, not far from Lake Titicaca, and this is the Gate of the Sun. It's called the Gate of the Sun because the figure above the entrance is actually really a Gate of the Sun. Although similar works of art, and especially the symbols of extinct South American civilizations, are very difficult to interpret, here we can see that the figure takes the form of a lion with a mane. Although she is regarded as a god or a demon, she is once again a woman with the sun above her head, holding snakes in her hands. The lion, or beast, is one of her spiritual forms. She herself is the gateway through which the sunbeams pass on their way to Earth, giving rise to life. She is another counterpart, for example, to the Egyptian scarab, or the Mesopotamian Ishtar. Look, there's that cartouche shape again. And here we are back in Mesopotamia. We see Ishtar, who has a lion at her feet. She has wings, and on her back, what looks like 6 staffs. These are probably 6 lights, 6 spirits, 6 churches. Ishtar is the 7th spirit and the 7th light. Ishtar is the Earth Mother, and the earth is her temple. Why is Ishtar so similar to the goddess Shiva in CERN? Shiva is not a god. She is the goddess of the earth. And the diagram of Collier's particle accelerator beneath the surface, which we have already shown, only confirms this fact. If my explanation is too fast or hard to follow, please let me know in the comments. We've already covered most of these topics, and I realize there's a lot to take in, but it's important to keep some of them in mind, as they'll be relevant to our further investigation. Everything is very closely interconnected. But now we've returned to Tiwanaku in Bolivia for a moment. This relief is somewhat unusual. On the left, you can see the original, which, unfortunately, has not survived in very good condition. Fortunately, we have a reconstruction of it on the right. At the bottom, we see our mother again. I know it's strange to call her our mother, but she represents our earth. A woman like a lion, holding snakes in her hands. That is one of her spiritual forms. The woman on the left is emerging from the earth's core. She therefore has the moon beneath her feet. But what on earth is that at the top of the board supposed to mean? It all looks like a tree with twisted branches. Does that remind you of anything? Yes, this is the tree of life that grows from Mother Earth. We would be more inclined to think of the Earth's core. It is the very same tree of life that we see on this Sumerian tablet. Our Earth, with the sun overhead. Literally. And here's another fragment of an Egyptian statuette. It's partially damaged, but we can still glean a lot of information from it. In the center, we again see an erect phallus with arms. This time, however, the arms are not holding snakes, but strange goat-like creatures with hooks on their undersides. At the top, we can see two horns and a symbol of folded wings. A sun disk is located between the wings. Above the sun disk is what could be a royal crown. Everything depicted in this cartouche is here. It is, today we would probably call him a global leader or ruler. It is a biblical dragon, a serpent. On the right, we see it depicted in a fresco as the Egyptian god Sobek, though it is not a crocodile. The Egyptians who worshiped the dragon saw it in these reptiles. Only fragments of the symbols remain on the shaft of the penis, making it impossible to obtain any further information. Here we have two spiritual beings. On the left is a human form of the sun disk with an erect penis, and on the right is a symbol of the dragon, a serpent that held the sun disk in its mouth. It also has an erect penis, and here we can connect this to what is known as the biblical sin. This means that the sun sends the energy of spiritual life to earth, while the dragon sends the energy of life in matter, which, however, is not natural for human beings. This, it seems, is the true biblical sin. But who caused it? We can find the answer to this question in Egyptian frescoes as well. But before I say goodbye, I'd like to ask you one question. Do you like fairy tales? Or did you like fairy tales when you were kids? Who wouldn't love them? Today's modern fairy tales are completely pointless and often vulgar, but of the older ones, I remember Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty, who fell into an eternal slumber, and the castle overgrown with roses. Just as our Mother Earth was completely transformed by the biblical catastrophe, as if she had fallen into an eternal slumber. And then there is the tree of life with its flowers, the same flowers found in Voynich's manuscript, from which radiant human spheres emerge. Sleeping Beauty fell asleep in a castle, whereas in the biblical view, our Earth is a temple. What about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, for example? Here, the wicked witch represents the serpent who offers Snow White, like the biblical Eve, a poisoned apple. And the seven dwarfs represent the seven angels, the seven churches. Snow White also fell into a deep sleep, but both beauties eventually awoke in the fairy tales, just as this statue depicts the event. There are many other fairy tales about evil creatures and seven-headed dragons in various forms all over the world, and they all recount the same event that took place in the very, very distant past. Our world used to be full of imagination, but I'll say goodbye for now. In the next video, we'll take a look at more Egyptian symbols and, above all, at the hoax known as the Egyptian light bulb.